Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're tackling a very common task in the IELTS academic reading test, multiple choice, where you have to choose one correct answer from four options. Now I know this question type can feel a little tricky with options that look very similar, but don't worry, with the right strategy you can definitely master it. So let's treat this as a warm-up, take a deep breath, relax, and focus on the process. Our goal today isn't just to find the answers, but to practice the skills that will help you feel confident on exam day. Let's get started. If you'd like to solve this question yourself, just click the link in the description. And for many more practice questions, visit iltspro.uk, your place, to get ready for IELTS with confidence. Urban heat. Alright, let's begin by looking at the title, Urban Heat. This immediately tells us the main topic. Urban means related to cities, and heat is about temperature. So, the passage is going to be about why cities are hot. This helps us predict the content. We'll probably read about the causes, effects, and maybe some solutions related to high temperatures in cities. Now, before we even touch the questions, let's talk strategy. Here's a simple, effective game plan for any multiple choice question. First, read the question very carefully and underline the key words. These words will guide you to the right place in the passage. Next, try to predict which paragraph might hold the answer based on your initial scan. Then, go to that part of the text and read it closely. Finally, compare what the text says with each option. One option will match the information perfectly, while the others, the distractors, will either be incorrect, not mentioned, or twist the information. Remember, your answers must come only from the text, not from your own knowledge. And always be on the lookout for paraphrasing. The options will rarely use the exact same words as the passage. Paragraph 1. This is our introduction. It defines the main concept, explaining what the urban heat island is and its primary cause. Key anchors here are streets, roofs, and concrete surfaces, store solar energy, and the temperature difference of 3 to 7 degrees Celsius, showing a clear cause and effect relationship. Paragraph 2. This paragraph explains the mechanisms, giving more reasons why the heat island effect happens. It's all about factors that intensify the heat, so we should look for keywords like dark construction materials, scarcity of trees, tall buildings, and waste heat, which all contribute to the problem. Paragraph 3. Here, the focus shifts to consequences. It describes the negative results of all this urban heat. The gist is that the heat has serious impacts, with key terms being heat wave, stress on the human body, electricity demand rises, and ground level ozone. Paragraph 4. This paragraph is about solutions or mitigation, explaining how we can fight urban heat. It introduces strategies to cool cities down, so we should note anchors like cool roofs, green roofs, and a specific number, 1 to 2 degrees Celsius, which points to the effectiveness of these measures. Paragraph 5. The final paragraph discusses policy and planning, looking at the bigger picture of how to implement these solutions effectively. It's about the best way forward, using phrases like effective policy, satellite imagery, vulnerable populations, and the important idea of combining local measurements with community input. So, our overall strategy is this. We've quickly scanned the passage to understand its structure definition, causes, effects, solutions, and policy. We won't read it in detail yet. Instead, we'll let the questions guide us back to the specific information we need. Now that we understand the topic and the layout of the passage, we're ready to look at the first question. According to the first paragraph, what chiefly explains higher urban temperatures? Okay, this question is very direct. The keywords are chiefly explains, which means the main reason, and higher urban temperatures. Crucially, it tells us exactly where to look, the first paragraph. So, we need to find the primary cause of urban heat mentioned in that specific paragraph. Greater human activity during the evening and night hours. Let's check the first paragraph. It talks about temperatures being warmer and how surfaces release heat at night, but it doesn't mention human activity as the main cause in this paragraph. That's discussed later in paragraph 2 with things like vehicles and industry. So, this option is not the chief explanation given in the first paragraph. This option is incorrect. Built surfaces store daytime solar energy and release it slowly. Now let's look at this option. The first paragraph says, the contrast arises because streets, roofs, and concrete surfaces store solar energy during the day and release it slowly at night. This is a perfect match. Built surfaces is a paraphrase for streets, roofs, and concrete surfaces, and the rest of the sentence is almost identical to the text. This option is correct. Coastal breezes are weakened by distant mountain ranges. I'm scanning the first paragraph for any mention of coastal breezes or mountain ranges. These words are not there. The text doesn't talk about these geographical features at all. This is classic distractor information that isn't supported by the passage. This option is incorrect. Higher urban elevations cause lower air pressure and extra heating. Similar to the last option, I'm checking the first paragraph for elevations or air pressure. Again, these concepts are not mentioned anywhere in the paragraph. The explanation given is about materials, not altitude or air pressure. This option is incorrect. So, after reviewing the options, the only one that is directly supported by the text in the first paragraph is B. It perfectly paraphrases the main reason given for the urban heat island effect. B. In paragraph 2, which factor is described as intensifying the heat island? Great. Let's move on to the second question. This one is also very helpful because it points us directly to paragraph 2. The key words are factor and intensifying the heat island, which means making it stronger or worse. So, we're looking for something in that paragraph that adds to the heat problem. Light facades reflecting a larger share of sunlight. Let's check paragraph 2. The text says, dark construction materials absorb more sunlight. This means dark materials make the city hotter. Light facades would do the opposite. They would reflect sunlight and have a cooling effect. This option states the opposite of what the passage implies. This option is incorrect. Shorter buildings that allow stronger wind circulation. The paragraph states that tall buildings can slow wind and trap warm air. This means tall buildings intensify the heat. Therefore, shorter buildings, which would allow for better wind circulation, would help reduce the heat. This option describes a solution, not a cause that intensifies the problem. This option is incorrect. Declining traffic volumes during late afternoon hours. The passage mentions that waste heat from vehicles adds further warmth. This means traffic adds heat. So, declining traffic would reduce the heat, not intensify it. This option contradicts the information given in the text. This option is incorrect. Limited tree cover reduces shade and evapotranspiration. Let's check the paragraph again. It says, the scarcity of trees reduces shade and evapotranspiration, a natural cooling process. Limited tree cover is a direct paraphrase of scarcity of trees. The text clearly states this reduction in trees intensifies the heat by removing a natural cooling mechanism. This matches perfectly. This option is correct. After checking all the options against paragraph 2, it's clear that D is the only factor mentioned that intensifies or worsens the urban heat island effect. D. According to the third paragraph, why are urban heat waves especially risky? Alright, question 3. Again, we are guided to a specific location, the third paragraph. The question asks why urban heat waves are especially risky. So we need to find the reason for the increased danger during these heat waves according to that paragraph. Persistently warm nights heighten physiological stress on residents. Let's examine the third paragraph. It states, during a heat wave, elevated night temperatures increase stress on the human body. This aligns perfectly with the option. Persistently warm nights is a good paraphrase for elevated night temperatures. And heightened physiological stress is a direct match for increased stress on the human body. This option is correct. High electricity demand can leave neighbourhoods without cooling options. The paragraph does mention that electricity demand rises, which can strain power grids. However, it doesn't say that this leaves neighbourhoods without cooling options. While straining the grid could lead to blackouts, the text doesn't explicitly state this as the main reason heat waves are risky. The primary risk mentioned first is the direct health impact. This option is incorrect. People cut back on cooling at night to save energy. Let's look at the third paragraph again. It says electricity demand goes up because residents run air conditioning for longer hours. It does not mention people cutting back to save energy. In fact, it suggests the opposite. This option is incorrect. Smog levels drop overnight, reducing perceived danger. The paragraph mentions the formation of ground level ozone, which is a component of smog. It says warmer surfaces encourage its formation, not that it drops overnight. This statement contradicts the information in the text. This option is incorrect. So, the clearest and most direct answer supported by the third paragraph is A. The text explicitly links the risk of heat waves to the stress caused by high night temperatures. A. What outcome is supported by field studies cited in paragraph 4? Okay, on to question 4. This one asks about an outcome supported by field studies and it tells us to look in paragraph 4. This is a detail-oriented question. We need to find the specific result that came from research or studies mentioned in that paragraph. Reflective pavements outperform green roofs in all climates. The fourth paragraph mentions both reflective pavements and green roofs. However, it does not compare their performance or say that one outperforms the other. It certainly doesn't mention all climates. The paragraph presents them as different strategies, but doesn't rank them. This option is incorrect. Parks reduce heat mainly when paired with wetlands restoration. The paragraph says, parks, ponds and restored wetlands moderate local microclimates. It lists them together as things that help, but it doesn't state that parks are only effective mainly when paired with wetlands. They are presented as separate but related strategies. This option is incorrect. Vegetation-based measures can lower afternoon air temperatures by 1 to 2 degrees. Let's find the part about field studies. The paragraph says, green roofs and expanded tree canopies can lower afternoon air temperatures in a neighbourhood by 1 to 2 degrees Celsius, according to field studies. Green roofs and expanded tree canopies are types of vegetation-based measures. The information matches exactly. The temperature drop and the specific number are right there. This option is correct. Permeable surfaces delay heat release but raise local humidity levels. The paragraph mentions that permeable surfaces reduce heat storage. It does not say anything about them delaying heat release or raising local humidity levels. This information is not mentioned in the text. This option is incorrect. Based on a close reading of the fourth paragraph, option C is the only statement directly supported by the evidence from the field studies mentioned in the text. C. In the final paragraph, what principle guides effective urban policy? Here's our last question. It asks about the principle that guides effective urban policy, and we need to look in the final paragraph. A principle is a fundamental idea or rule, so we are looking for the main recommendation for creating good city policies on this issue. Standardized national codes applied uniformly across cities. Let's check the final paragraph. The text says, because cities differ in climate, architecture and energy systems, the best programs combine local measurements with community input. This suggests that a uniform, one-size-fits-all approach is not effective. This option directly contradicts that idea. This option is incorrect. Combining local measurements with community input to tailor programs. This option seems very promising. The last two sentences of the paragraph state, the best programs combine local measurements with community input. In doing so, urban areas can remain productive and livable. This option is a direct paraphrase of the guiding principle described in the text for making successful programs. This option is correct. Prioritizing satellite mapping over on-the-ground assessments. The paragraph does mention that satellite imagery helps identify hotspots. However, it doesn't say this should be prioritized over other assessments. In fact, it recommends combining different types of information, like local measurements and community input, suggesting a balanced approach, not prioritizing one method over another. This option is incorrect. Focusing solely on material science while ignoring social equity. This option is also contradicted by the text. The paragraph mentions equity-minded planning and identifying where vulnerable populations face higher risk. This shows that social equity is an important part of the policy, not something to be ignored. This option is incorrect. So, the principle that guides effective urban policy, according to the final paragraph, is clearly stated. The best approach is not uniform but tailored to specific places, which is perfectly captured in option BB. So, there we have it. We've worked through a full multiple choice question set about urban heat. The key strategies we used were understanding the passage structure through a quick skim, using the question's keywords to locate the answer, and carefully matching the information in the text with the options, always watching out for paraphrasing. Remember to trust the text and eliminate the options that are not mentioned or contradict what you've read. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more IELTS questions, and follow us at ieltspro.uk for complete resources and practice materials.